This is my secret hack that has made me millions and millions and millions of dollars when it comes to outbound marketing. The goal of this video is to take you from a beginner or somebody who has no idea what outbound marketing is to becoming an expert, right? Like, I'm going to give you all of my expertise in this video so you could go ahead and apply it and scale your business as fast and as efficiently as possible. Welcome to my next video. My name is Justin Guerra. I have built 3 multi-7-figure companies, and I'm here to teach you everything that I have learned over the last few years of scaling and growing companies. These are basically all of my lessons. I've spent millions and millions of dollars of trial and error getting these things right. And I'm here to give it all to you. All right. So the goal of this video is to take you from a beginner or somebody who has no idea what outbound marketing is to becoming an expert, right? Like, I'm going to give you all of my expertise in this video so you could go ahead and apply it and scale your business as fast and as efficiently as possible. First of all, to understand what outbound marketing is, you have to understand the complete polar opposite, which is inbound marketing. So there's 2 types of marketing in this world, right? Everything falls into these 2 categories. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to fall into these 2. Number 1, outbound marketing is when you reach out to somebody on a private channel, right? That's essentially a one-on-one channel. Number 2, inbound marketing, where you post an ad and you have massive amounts of people see that ad and they opt into it, and that's how they reach to you. And you put that ad in front of the people that are going to go ahead and buy your product. Ideally, that's ideally how it works, right? And like I said, by the end of this video, you're going to be a complete expert in outbound marketing. So to start off, what is outbound marketing? And just kind of get into a little bit deeper of what it truly is. It is going ahead and finding data of people that would be interested in your product or service, reaching out to them directly by means of a marketing channel. And we'll dive into the marketing channels in depth during this video, but we'll just name here a few to start. Some will be cold call, right? Texting, Ringless voicemails, emails, mailers. And these are the few that we're going to touch on today. There is so many kinds of outbound marketing techniques. These are the ones that I'm going to present you today. How does it work, right? And I'm going to run you through a basic sequence of what it looks like, right? It's data collection, it is a marketing channel, and it is outreach. Boom. You just got 101 on outbound marketing. That's all you need to know to start off. Now let's start diving into what are the basics. We're going to go step by phase. We're going to start at data, then we're going to go to channel, and then we're going to go to outreach, right? So starting off data, right? How do you collect the data to reach out to your ideal client? And it doesn't matter what the industry is for. You're going to need to look for your avatar, right? Now, when it comes to data, there's mainly 2 types of data that you could buy. It's called wide data, which is exactly what it sounds like. You go extremely wide. Don't put any filters on it. For example, well, you could take this to any other industry, right? So you could go, I want, let's say I'm looking for business owners. I want all the business owners in LA County, right? That's considered wide data. Then I go, well, I want all the business owners except for trucking, except for restaurants, except for whatever the case may be. And then I want those business owners to make above $150,000 a month, right? That's going to be considered niche data because you're niching down the data that you're working on. All that niching down that data means is that you're adding filters to make it more specific to your ideal client. Now you understand wide data versus niche data, right? Super simple topics to understand. When you're picking your data, there's other 2 types of data, right? There is no intent data, and then there is intent data. Intent data is somebody who has looked for your service before or might have intention of purchasing your service. For example, my first company in real estate, right? I'll tell you guys a quick story. My first company in real estate, I scaled it up very, very quickly. And when I was first scaling the company, I was using niche data because I didn't have a lot of money for marketing resources. So I needed data that was more accurate to target so I could go ahead and convert more leads at a faster pace, right? And for me at that point, it was, let's say it was people that were going through divorce, were going through foreclosure. They were just in a bad situation. So ideally, this person would have some intent of moving forward with my product. Now, as the company grew, we outgrew niche data to where it was, now I need to target wide data to do more volume and bring in more leads to my sales team. Do you see what I'm saying here? So when it comes down to no intent and intent, it's really a decision of where your company's at that time, right? So how do I find intent data? How do I find no intent data? Now, there's 3 types of ways to pull data. Scraping, which is going to be essentially you go yourself and find the people that are going to be an avatar to your product. For example, let's say I go online and find a Facebook group with a whole bunch of dentists, right? And I hire a virtual assistant, or I hire somebody to go ahead and pull their emails for me, pull their first name and last name, or I go ahead and go to, for example, Google Maps, and I pull the business phone number and I pull the business name. And that's essentially data scraping, right? Now, the thing about this is it takes a lot of manpower and some good amount of resources. Data scrape. Number 2, softwares. So, for example, you could go online right now and find fucking hundreds of softwares that will give you any type of data that you're looking for. If I want to go, all right, let me go find B2B LinkedIn data, and I type that into my Google search bar, I promise you I'll give you guys one right now, Apollo, right? Apollo.ai. I could go ahead and find LinkedIn data on there for people that I'm trying to reach out to specifically. And then I could go ahead and choose if I want to do wide or niche on that website. And I go ahead and scrape that data. That's another way to get data. And number 3, data providers. So data providers is what I've mostly used throughout my career because it kind of saves you time and efficiency. And, it depends on where you are, right? It depends on what your budgets are and things along those lines. But the cool thing about data providers is that you could go to them and say, I want data of all the dentists in this county, and they need to make a certain amount of revenue, and they need to do this, this, and this, and this. I'll give you an example of all 3 of those scenarios right now. I'll give you examples with each individual one of my companies. When I used to do coaching for my real estate company and people didn't have a lot of money to start, I would tell them, go to PropStream and you could pull 10,000 records for free. That's software pulling, right? And they'll give you some niche data that you could pull from there and stuff like that. And it's very, inexpensive to do it that way. It just gets very tedious at volume, and it's really hard to market with just leveraging softwares. But if you go ahead and pull all the data from every software and you have a decent budget, you're in the game. Next, data scrape. So it's actually going to tie back into the real estate company as well. When we were selling the deal for the real estate company, I would go into Facebook groups and find all the buyers inside the Facebook groups. And then I would see that they would comment their emails under other people's posts. And I would get my VA to go ahead and add all those emails to an Excel sheet, and I would mass outbound email them, right? And then that's how I would build my buyers list. There's just a million different ways to do this, right? Like, for example, when I was running my recruiting agency, I would go through Facebook groups, put up posts, and then have people drop their emails and then scrape those emails and then outbound for recruiting, right? Like, it was just, it doesn't matter. There is a group of people online and on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you want to look that are going to have their data readily available. And data providers, right? So as I grew my company, let's say for my logistics company, I was looking for certain types of investors that, were in the country. And I was looking for a specific niche. I was looking for accredited and non-accredited, and I was looking for them in specific zip codes. So I called my data providers, and I'll give you one really good tidbit right here. If you have a really good data provider, ask him for the data dictionary, right? This is like super sauce right here. Ask him for a data dictionary, and if they're really fucking good providers, they'll give it to you. And you'll be able to open up the data dictionary and start pulling data from people's credit scores, how much money they make per year, damn near what religion they are. Like, there's data of everything. You have to understand, every time you go to Walmart and sign up for something, every time your credit gets pulled on Experian, and that data goes, it doesn't just disappear into thin air, right? Anytime you do a survey, if that data is available on the internet, it's probably available for sale. So scraping data, software data, and data providers. Those are going to be your 3 main ways to get data to outbound market. Now that we understand what data we want to choose, where we're going to choose it from, how we're going to scrape it, buy it, or, go ahead and search for it ourselves on softwares. Now let's choose our marketing channel, right? So we're going to go ahead and dive in deep on each individual marketing channel. And then after that, we're going to talk about how to scale those marketing channels and what I've noticed fits best for each individual marketing channel for my own companies. And mind you, it depends on, it varies from industry to industry. So first, let's talk about cold call, right? Cold call is essentially when you call somebody that is not expecting your call to generate a lead. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is, somebody that just is not expecting the call to connect or to connect with you on a call. Now, when you cold call, there's a few different ways to go about it. And we're going to go from beginner to experienced, and I'm going to give you different scenarios for each one. And they're all successful. They all work. It just depends on your budgets. So when I was first starting off my first company, actually when I was working in somebody's startup before I started my first company, we didn't really know exactly what we were doing at all times. So when we were first starting off, no experience, right? No experience, no money. What we ended up doing is we scraped data, right? We scraped data individually ourselves and made a data list. Once I individually scraped that data list, we created a script based on the product that we were selling. And then what I did is I put all the data into an Excel sheet and individually hand dialed off my phone. I was doing about 200 calls a day. When it comes to cold calling, if you're not doing 150 to 200 calls a day, you're bullshitting. It's not going to work. You have to do fucking volume. And normally when I ask people that are starting businesses and they're doing cold calling, the first question I ask when I'm consulting is, how many calls are you doing? And normally that number is way lower than the amount they should be doing. So this is a tidbit right here. Aim for 100 to 200 calls per day. You should gain about a 1% conversion ratio. So whatever you are, depending on the data, obviously, if it's super niche, you might do a little bit more. If it's wider, you might do a little bit less. And that number could fluctuate, but what I've seen very consistent is you're going to see about a 1% conversion ratio. Now, for me, when I was first starting out, like I said, we scraped that data. I called it off an Excel sheet. I called off my phone and hand dialed. I was doing about 150 calls per day. It took me about 2 weeks to get my first deal, and that was a lucky home run. Because when it comes to hand dialing, you're going to need to do a lot of volume to generate a good amount of leads to be able to convert leads to sales, right? That is the whole game. And when you're hand dialing, you can't do as many calls as you would like to, because ideally when you're, and let's jump back a little bit real quick. Just let me give you another tidbit when it comes to cold calling. You need a good amount of data. Like if you have less than 5,000 records and you're cold calling, you need to find more data. Like that is the magic number to start off with. At least start with 5,000 records and up. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Just you need to have records. When it came down to my first startup, I was hand dialing, 2 weeks, got my first deal, $26,000. And hand dialing didn't work again for I kept hand dialing for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, didn't get another deal. So it's very, very inconsistent because you're not doing enough volume. The second way is to get a 3-line dialer, right? A phone that calls 3 numbers at a time. When you're running at volume and you have, a decent sized data list, this is going to be the most beneficial thing for you to do starting off, because it's going to give you the advantage of reality is you're going to deal with a lot of people that don't pick up. So if you're calling 3 people at a time, you're going to get the most probability of pickup. It's a numbers game. So you need to do as much volume as you possibly can with the budget that you have. Now, let's go expert mode here, right? Expert mode here is starting a call center, and that's a lot easier than you think it is. You could go online and hire some Filipinos for $4 or $5 an hour, and depending on what the product is, you could have them hop on a 14-line dialer at mass volume with if you have some good data running in there. I would at least recommend 30 to 40,000 records and above. And it's not that complicated to get, guys. Like if you go in there online and search for records, you'll be able to get them, especially if you have the budget. Or you could go to a data provider. And data providers aren't too expensive either. Mind you, a lot of things that people don't know, and this is a really good advice right here, is that everything is negotiable. So if you buy at volume and, let's say it's, 20 cents a record, drop them down to 10, drop them down to 7 cents, right? And then if it's niche data, it might be a little bit more expensive, but you won't have to make as many calls to get a deal done. There'll just be less data for you to deal with. Beginner mode would be you calling off an Excel sheet. Intermediate mode would be you calling off a 3-line dialer by yourself or with, 2 to 3 people. Expert mode would be you hiring, a team of, it doesn't matter where you hire them from. It could be, in the States, overshores you save a lot of cost, or overseas you save a lot of cost, and then getting them on a 14-line dialer or 10-line dialer above, right? That is where you really start generating a lot of leads. For example, when I was doing about $250,000 a month, I had a team of 20 cold callers, right? And I was spending about $25,000 a month or so, right? In cold calling costs. Also, guys, data is reusable. So run your data as often as you possibly can, and squeeze everything out of it. And then when you feel like it's burnt out, buy some more data, squeeze through that, and then recycle the whole data, right? With my first company, I swear to you guys, like with the same 100,000 records, we made so much freaking money. But, with my second company that produced a lot more volume than that one, I had to buy data every 4 or 5 weeks. So it just depends on your niche, right? But just make sure you squeeze the data out. Like even with my second company, we would recycle a lot of our old data on depending on a week by week basis, depending on how our lead generation flow was going. So if you see that your conversion percentage starts dropping down, just make sure that, you recycle old data and try to, get the lead volume back up. Everything has to be consistent. Now, let's move on to SMS, right? All SMS is that you are sending a text message to a person that might be interested in your product or converting them to a lead with a opt-in. So for example, I'll give you guys a really good tip right here, is that you want to make whatever your copy is, make it feel like they had already opted in. So if I'm selling you leads, I'd be like, hey, Tom, were you still interested in lead generation for your company? My other client just hit X amount this month. Boom. Might have never reached out to them, but you piqued their interest, right? Now with SMS, you're going to have appointment setting, or you're going to have to call those leads back yourself, right? So let's talk about level 1 through beginner phase SMS to expert phase SMS, right? So let's say you're doing outbound, right? And you're starting off and you have a product that you want to sell, and you go through your contacts list. You have 200 people on your contacts list. You manually text them all. And that's a form of starting SMS campaign. Level 2 is you're going to use a software to go ahead and send those SMSs out. At level 2, you're probably going to be sending around 150 to 200 SMSs out a day. Maybe they're outbound messages. Maybe, Now you might think, oh, wow, that's a lot of SMSs. But depending on your data, your response rate might be really, really low. So you could still handle that as a one-man show and be able to reply to all those people and then generate those leads. So your goal is going to be to get replies to the point where the person says they're truly interested in the product. And number 2, get them on the phone and convert them to a lead, because the deal is not done when they say yes. The deal is done when they get on the phone and are truly converted to a lead. Now, scaling SMS. For my second company that I scaled, we ran very, very large SMS campaigns. Now, this is kind of where you get into like the area of rules and regulations, right? SMS has a lot of rules and regulations, and it's kind of hard to scale now, but it's still very possible depending on your niche, depending on what softwares you're able to find. There's things called 10 DLCs and A2Ps, right? Those are essentially rules and regulations that you have to register for. You have to register your number with the carriers to be able to send out SMSs, and they will block you down every once in a while. So just make sure that you have your messaging down packed, and you talk to your SMS provider about how to get the best messaging so you don't get blocked. And it's in their best interest too, because obviously their company is going to go and, putting up their face for you because they're the server where you're running their SMS. So make sure you ask a lot of questions. Now, for my company, when we were running at top volume, I was sending about 120,000 SMSs a day at top scale where I was running. And for that, I'll tell you the matured version of what that campaign looks like. It was SMSs, automated template responses, right, to whatever the responses were, because we figured that every person has about, 6 to 7 different objections, and we just kind of automated all of them to where like a VA could kind of go through and reply back quickly. And then Next would be that person replied yes to the message. We finally converted them to a yes. We would send that over to an appointment setter. An appointment setter would send an appointment and pre-qualify the lead and qualify the lead to make sure they're a quality lead, and then send it over to our sales floor, right? So let's go from beginning of funnel, right? Boom, send out mass volume SMS. Then we manage replies and go ahead and pre-qualify and set those to a yes. And then we go ahead and get a VA or a appointment setter to go ahead and call that lead and fully qualify them, make sure they're a valid lead, and then schedule an appointment, right? So that is the fully matured version of that. Now let's go over to DMs or outbound reach on social media softwares and stuff like that. Now, the thing about this is that, these social media softwares have a lot of rules and regulations, right? And sometimes you can't send a lot of messages on them. So you'll kind of be limited to, maybe 200, 150 messages per day, maybe 60, 70, depending on the size of your account. The really interesting thing about this is that because, you're on social media, your leads are probably going to be a lot more niched. So you'll get a higher response rate. But once again, it's a volume game. If you're not sending at least, 50, 60, 70, 80 messages per day and building that up, you're not going to get any responses. Now, here we go. Let's talk about beginner version of this, intermediate version of this, and then expert version of this. Beginner version, you yourself finds the people that you want to go ahead and message on social media, and they go ahead and then you message them directly. You manage the conversation. You convert them to a lead. You get on the phone. You close, right? Very simple. Then we have intermediate version, which is essentially you get a VA to go ahead and message them for you, right? They find the people, they message them for you, they convert them to a yes. Then you set the appointment, right? They just generate the lead, they just generate the yes. You come back in, take over the conversation, get on the phone with them, and convert them to a sale. And then you have the expert version of this, right? You get a VA, pull the data for you, right? Then the VA outbound messages those people. The VA converts them to a yes. Then you have somebody who sets your appointment, qualifies the lead, sends it over to the sales team. Very similar to the SMS campaign. It's just different amounts of volume because different quality of data. And we're going to go over two more campaigns. Here are three more campaigns that are going to be really good for you guys. We're going to go over ringless voicemails. Mind you, everything is up to rules and regulations in your state and in your county. I am speaking in general terms. I'm not giving you direct advice on which marketing channel to choose. Please do your own due diligence in what marketing channels have rules and regulations in your county and what are those rules and regulations. RVM, ringless voicemails. So essentially what a ringless voicemail is, have you ever been on your phone and then you just saw like voicemail pop up but you didn't get a call? That's a ringless voicemail. So what that does is that you're able to drop tens of thousands of ringless voicemails at a time at a really, really, really low cost. It's a really, really cheap marketing channel. It's really good for wide data. And honestly, like it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what your industry is. But it's generally really good for wide data because you're able to hit a lot of people for a really cheap amount. Then the dynamics of that marketing campaign, essentially the way that works is that you're going to get a voicemail, right? The person is going to call back and say, hey, you called this number. Maybe they heard your voicemail. Maybe they didn't. You're going to have to pre-qualify the person. And then you're going to have to convert them to a lead, right? That is essentially the dynamic of a ringless voicemail campaign. And that's what it looks like in beginner-wise. You're going to have to use some software for this one. This is one of the very few ones where you're going to have to use software to be able to, truly accomplish it. Intermediate version, it looks like, hey, you send out the ringless voicemail campaign. You have a person screening the calls, call them back, and pre-qualify them. Next, which would be advanced expert version, right, would be you would send the ringless voicemail out, have a VA answer the call, pre-qualify them, and qualify them. So you have to get a higher quality VA, right, or an employee to do this. This is why it's a little bit more expert because it costs more money sometimes, depending on, where you're recruiting from overseas or if you're recruiting onshore, and send that lead over to the CRM pre-qualified or live transfer that lead. So do essentially a transfer call to a sales rep. That's what an expert version of that looks like. Let's jump into email campaigns. So email campaigns, we're going to do the same exact thing, right? Very similar to SMS and DM outreach. So we're going to do, let's say, for example, beginner version. You scrape a few emails yourself. You send that email out directly. Maybe you have 20 emails a day, 30 emails a day, 100 emails a day. And you send those emails out. You get a response. You manage the conversation. And you convert that over to a yes, which you get on the phone with, and you convert to a lead. The thing about emails, though, is that like RVM, they require a lot of volume. So if you're manually sending emails out, you can't do 100 a day. Well, you can, but ideally you would want to start at, 200, 300, 400. Maybe use a software to scrape that data, get the data for free. Start sending out those emails, especially if it's wide data. If it's niche data, or if you're cold emailing niche data, you might have a better chance of sending lower volume. But mind you, people don't check their emails as periodically as they do their SMSs and their DMs. So you're going to have to send a lot more volume out in the beginner stage, which is going to make it to where you have to do a lot more manual labor. Now let's go intermediate stage, right? Intermediate stage, you pull massive amounts of data. You use a software to send, let's say 10,000, 15,000 emails a day, 5,000 emails a day. And you manage the conversations, you get them on the phone, and you convert them to a lead, then a deal, right? You qualify them as a lead, then a deal. Expert mode, right? Very similar to how the SMS campaigns run. You send out tens of thousands of emails a day, whatever volume you want to do. Email comes back. You use software and automations to manage replies. You have VAs in there managing conversations. They convert it to a yes, and they get, an appointment set. You get somebody to get on the phone, pre-qualify that lead or qualify that lead, and then you either schedule an appointment or live transfer to a sales team. You guys starting to get the repetitiveness here. Outbound marketing is literally, it's very, very similar across the board. Now, we're going to jump over to the next marketing campaign, mailers, right? So mailers are essentially direct mail. You send out mail to somebody, they see the postcard, they call back, you generate leads that way. And the really cool thing about mailers is that you don't have to go wide with them. And they're really good for going niche with people because they're a little bit more expensive to run, right? Compared to SMS, RVM, and email. They're a little bit more expensive to run. You can still get them really, really cheap if you find a good website. And you could go niche. So send less volume, send it out more periodically. All right. One thing that I got advice for a few years ago back is that when sending mailers, you want to set a budget. Whatever your budget is, expand it out for 3 months because you might not get a lot of callbacks first month. Your leads might start coming in second month, and then you want to carry those leads on to month 3, right? Mailers are really, really good. Now let's talk about beginner mode, intermediate mode, and then expert mode, right? So beginner mode, you write your own letters, you pull your own data list, or you drive around town, or whatever the case may be. You find the businesses yourself, you make a list, and then you go ahead and send those mailers out yourself. A lot of people do this. It's very common, and it's a lot more, it's not necessarily cost effective, but you could, niche it down and get to the people that you need to get to, right? And then this is good for when you don't have a lot of budget. Version number 2, you pull the data, you print out the mailer, and you go ahead and email them out the same way. Pull the data instead of, scraping the data yourself, whatever the case may be. Pull the data, do mass volume of mailers, email them out yourself, right? Print out a letter, make something. From beginner to expert, the only difference is that you start automating more processes and make it more scalable, right? So beginner mode, you're scraping data, you're going ahead and writing the mailers yourself or whatever the case may be, sending them out, right? And I would keep it very niche at this stage. Try to find the most intent-filled data that you possibly can. I wouldn't go no intent without volume. Number 2, you're going to, intermediate level, you're going to go ahead and pull the data, and then you're going to mass send out. Expert mode, you go ahead and pull very niche data at volume. You find a software that's going to send those mailers out for you. So a company that will send those mailers out for you, right? And then you put a VA on the back end to receive the incoming calls. They qualify them, and they send you the lead over as a live transfer, or they schedule you an appointment. Let's jump into scaling tips. These are going to be things that are going to make it easier for you to grow your company, and how to make decisions on what you're going to do when it comes to data and marketing. Right? So With campaigns that you have to do mass volume with, I would go wide. With campaigns that you have to do less volume with, I would go intent and niche, right? You could go either way you want to. But starting off, when you're like, for example, when you're starting off, you're going to want to go intent data because you're going to be able to get a deal as fast as possible. As you grow your company, getting a deal as fast as possible isn't going to be your main concern. Getting deals for your whole entire team is going to be your main concern. So you're going to want to wide market as much as possible and get deals. Now, here's some sauce. If you start reaching expert level from intermediate to expert, buy all the intent data you can. Like buy niche data, as much volume as you can, and scale that shit to the moon, right? Like for example, my wholesale company, I did unknown equity for all my deals, right? And we bought goddamn every unknown equity record in the county, right? When I started my logistics company, I bought every niche business owner that was accredited investor, non-accredited investor. And as my sales team grew, I ran out of data. I bought all the data in the country. So I had to buy all the business owners in the country that I might think might be interested in investing, right? So you want to scale from intent to no intent as you grow bigger and bigger and bigger, but you still want to keep your avatar intact. That is your goal. All right, guys, thank you for making it towards the end of the video. This is my secret hack that has made me millions and millions and millions of dollars when it comes to outbound marketing. Track your data, right? So one thing that I do is that I hired a VA and I made it to where he labeled out all my data sheets, told me how many leads I generated from each data sheet, told me how many closes I got from each data sheet, and tell me what my percentage of closes, right? When that happens, I'm able to make decisions and go, okay, well, this intent data specifically that I'm getting from this data source is giving me a 30% conversion rate from lead to close. So I'm going to go buy more of this data. With this data, I'm getting a 10% conversion rate. Maybe let me keep that data as a secondary. With this third data, I'm getting a 2% conversion rate. I'm no longer getting data from this lead source. It's not working. Let me go ahead and move on to the things that are working. Now, we could always assume these things based on how we're producing leads, but when you start truly tracking your data, it's never about guessing anymore, but it's about looking at the numbers and understanding how to make your company scalable at a high, expert level. So, and guys, my whole goal from this video was to make you an expert in outbound marketing and for you to truly understand at least, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marketing channels and how they work. And when you understand these lessons, they are applicable to damn near every outbound marketing channel. And I want you to just think about these things. Like from beginner mode, it's just you doing things yourself and there's no automations or software in place to help you. And as you grow, you hire and you set some automations. And then as you grow even more, you just more automations, more hiring, more systems, more processes. That is the trend of growth here. And then the game is staying stable throughout that process to where you could scale significantly without hitting a big pitfall. But that's what these videos are for. So you don't hit those pitfalls and I could save you all the money that I have burnt in trying to figure this shit out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Appreciate you guys. See you on the other side.